All right, boys and girls, here we are, chapter 5. We're working on those real world problems, addition and subtraction, with some bar modeling going on. So let's begin here. The example here, as you'll see, is all done for you. But let's go over how they did it so we can kind of get an understanding before we go and do our own, okay? So Jake mixes 620 liters of water and 180 liters of syrup to make lemonade. How much more water than, he adds another 145 liters of water to the mixture. How much more water than syrup does he use for the lemonade? So we know he started with 620 liters of water, okay? So you can see this one's pretty big and it goes to right here at first, right? So a pretty big rectangle, or bar, excuse me. And we'll label that 620 liters. And there's 180 liters of syrup. So they just made a smaller bar model for that and put 180 liters. He adds another 145 liters of water. So we're going to extend this bar another 145 liters, okay? Now, these don't have to be exact, right? The main thing is that you know that this and this is going to be longer than that, right? And we know that 620 is greater than 180. That's why we made this bar longer to begin with. And then we're adding another 145 to it, okay? So the question is not how much water did he use, though, correct? The question is how much more water than syrup does he use? So in order to answer that question, we need to see first how much water, okay? After we see how much water he has, then we can compare it to the syrup. So the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out how much water there is. So we're going to use our part whole, and we have both parts this time. We know how much water he started with, and we know how much water he added, okay? So we started with 620. He added 145, so that equals 765. So the total for this is 765. So now let's just go 765 here, okay? And you'll notice this is actually our question. Where that question mark is, that's the question we're looking for. Now we have 180 of it, but we're missing this part. Well, if we flip our triangle upside down, we know that we have the whole, and we know one part when comparing. So we will have to subtract 765 minus 180. Okay, and there it is, 765 minus 180 equals 585. So he uses 585 liters more water than syrup. All right. And here we go with problem 1. It says solve, draw bar models to help you. A pet store donates 3,500 pounds of dog food to an animal shelter. A farm donates 2,500 pounds of dog food at first. Later, it donates another 2,000 pounds of dog food to the animal shelter. The question is, how many more pounds of dog food does the farm donate than the pet store? So we know okay, so there's kind of that piece there, right? And we know this is the pet store. And the pet store donated 3,500 pounds. All right. And the farm donates 2,500. So we're going to kind of start it about the same way, but it's not going to be quite as long. So the farm donates 2,500. Now a key part of this says at first, right? So then it says later it meaning the farm, right? the farm donates another 2,000 pounds of dog food. So we have another 2,000 pounds. How many more pounds of dog food does the farm donate than the pet store? So we know that the farm donates more, but we just don't know how much more, right? So we need to try to figure out what is from here to here. We need to figure this part out, right? So if we had a bar here, how much more would that be, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how much the farm donated. So we know both parts of the farm. We know it donated 2,500 at the beginning, okay? And it donated 2,000 later. So we can combine those two. 2,000, and that equals 4,500 pounds of dog food. Okay, now we know the total, which is the 4,500 pounds, and that's not our answer though, right? That's just a part so that we can now figure out what our answer is. Now we're going to compare, because we have the big one, the whole, the total, which is 4,500 pounds. And we're going to compare it to one of the parts, which is the pet store. The other part of the pet store is how much more or how much less the pet store donates than the farm, okay? So we're going to take the 4,500 and we're going to subtract, we're going to take away how much the pet store. So basically we're comparing those two, and we know that they're not equal. We know that the farm has a greater amount than the pet store. So we're going to compare them, and we now know that 0 and 0, 5 minus 5 is also 0, and 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, so the farm donates 1,000 pounds more than the pet store. Or maybe add 1,000 pounds more dog food, since that's what we're talking about, right? Than the pet store. Okay, boys and girls, that is it. One problem today, but these take a little while. These are kind of tricky, so hang in there. Really be thinking about what words do you see up here, okay? What's it looking at? What do you know? And then what do you not know, right? And then how do you look for what you have and what you know? How do you use that to figure out what the question's asking you, okay? You can do it. We'll see you tomorrow, kiddos.